Georgia, a state steeped in history, beauty, and darkness. Behind the grand plantations and sprawling fields lies a history of secrets, secrets too horrifying to speak aloud. For generations, stories whispered through the corridors of old plantation houses told of something impossible: white children, being born inside slave quarters. These were children who looked nothing like the mothers who raised them, children whose very existence was considered forbidden. What would cause such a mystery? And what did the doctors, historians, and eyewitnesses finally discover that no one was meant to see? This is not a story from folklore. This is a story of hidden truths, forbidden acts, and the darkest corners of human history. Part 1. Strange Cases begin. It began quietly, almost imperceptibly. Plantation owners and overseers started noticing anomalies among the children being born in the quarters of slaves. Some children had pale skin, light hair, or blue eyes, traits unheard of in their community. At first, these cases were dismissed as rumor, superstition, or genetic flukes. But as the incidents multiplied, the local physicians could no longer ignore them. The children were real, and their origins mysterious. Dr. Samuel Whitaker, a physician in Georgia, began to investigate. Unlike others who turned away, Whitaker wanted to understand the pattern. He meticulously documented each case, noting the children's physical features, the mother's conditions, and the social circumstances surrounding their birth. What he uncovered would shock him, and would have shocked the world if it were revealed at the time. Some children were kept hidden for months, even years. Others were quietly removed from their mothers. Their existence was treated as forbidden, as though the very act of being born was a crime. Part 2. Life inside slave quarters. To understand why these children were hidden, we must first understand life inside the slave quarters. Conditions were harsh. Families were cramped into tiny wooden cabins. Privacy was non-existent. Children were born in the shadows of oppression. But within this darkness there were horrors that went beyond mere survival. Plantation owners often held absolute power over the lives of the enslaved, and some used this power to satisfy twisted desires. It was in these hidden corners that white children began to appear, the results of acts that were both secret and forbidden. Some women were forced into unspeakable acts, giving birth to children who were kept hidden for fear of scandal or punishment. The doctor documented these children, noticing patterns, similarities in features, timing, and circumstances that suggested deliberate acts rather than chance. The social structure allowed this secrecy. Neighbors turned a blind eye, overseers ignored the whispers, and the children, they were left in limbo, invisible to the world. Part 3. The Doctor's Forbidden Investigation. Dr. Whitaker did not simply record anomalies. He investigated their origins. He interviewed mothers, slaves who had survived, and overseers, carefully, without revealing his intent. He found that the children's births were not natural anomalies. They were the result of illicit acts by some of the very men who enslaved these women. These acts were hidden in secrecy because society could not tolerate the truth. Whitaker's notes reveal a pattern. The children often had features of their oppressors, suggesting the horrifying reality. These children were born of abuse, exploitation, and power unchecked. He documented the children's conditions, noting that some were healthy, others sickly. Some were allowed to live within the quarters, others were removed. But almost all were hidden from the larger world. This was a world where life and humanity were weighed against the desires of the powerful, and where some children were doomed to invisibility before they even opened their eyes. Whitaker's investigation exposed something more terrifying than any ghost story: the systematic erasure of lives, the silencing of mothers, and the concealment of innocence. It was a truth that no one dared speak, a forbidden knowledge that would remain hidden for decades. Part 4. The journal surfaces. Whitaker knew the danger of speaking openly. If the plantation owners discovered his findings, he risked death. So he kept a journal, a record of hidden truths, of white children born in secrecy, and of the cruelty that enabled it. Decades later, this journal resurfaced. Historians were stunned. It provided the first detailed account of a practice that had been whispered about, but never documented. The journal revealed the scale of the hidden births, the secrecy, and the forbidden nature of the acts that created them. Some plantation owners were implicated, others had long passed, leaving behind only shadows and whispers. The journal revealed the lives of children who existed in limbo. Some grew up within slave communities, some were taken and raised in secrecy, and where human horror rivaled any ghost story. Part 5. Reflection and Historical Context. The story of the white children born inside slave quarters is more than a historical curiosity. It is a reflection of the darkest aspects of humanity, the abuse of power, the erasure of lives, and the lengths people go to hide their crimes. Whitaker's work reminds us that some horrors are human-made, not supernatural. While ghost stories and haunted plantations captivate the imagination, the real horror often comes from history itself, from secrets buried in silence, from children who were never meant to exist in the open. Historians now study these records to understand not only the hidden children, but also the social structures and abuses that allowed such secrecy to thrive. It's a story of shame, cruelty, and forbidden knowledge, a story that America is only now fully coming to terms with. Georgia's plantations hide countless stories, some of beauty, others of terror. The secret of the white children born in slave quarters is among the most haunting. It is a story of forbidden acts, silenced voices, and lives erased in darkness. Dr. Whitaker's journal reminds us that the truest horrors are not always supernatural. Sometimes they are human. If you dare to uncover more forgotten and terrifying stories from America's past, subscribe to Haunt Rush. Step into the shadows with us, if you dare. Disclaimer: the stories presented on Haunt Rush are works of fiction, created for entertainment purposes only. Any names, locations, characters, or events are purely imaginary or used in a fictional manner. These videos are not intended to represent real people or actual events.